Hello everyone, my name is Roya, and today I'm coming to you with the books that I read in the first half of April. First, I'm going to start with two books that I did already post full video reviews of, the first of which is The Final Curse of Ophelia Cray by Christine Colella. This was sent to me by Colored Pages Book Tours, so thank you so much to Colored Pages Book Tours for sending this my way and allowing me to participate in the Instagram book tour, so that was really fun. So anyway, this was a really unputdownable book. It was so good. It's about this girl named Ophelia who is a pirate's daughter, and she lives on an island where everyone just knows that she's the pirate's daughter, and that's all she is to them, and everyone just treats her like she's no different from her mother, who she didn't even know, by the way. She wasn't even raised by her or anything. And so she wants to get off of her island, get the hell out of Dodge, and so she keeps trying to enlist in the Navy, and they won't let her because she's the pirate's daughter and all of that. So she ends up enlisting as her sister, and then, because her sister has the same dad, different mom who is not a pirate, all of that, and then due to some circumstances, her sister ends up having to brave the high seas herself to go and find her, and it is so good. There's so much conflict in this. There's never a lull in the action at all. The characterization was really good. It's a really character-driven story and a very plot-driven story, and you can check out my full review video of this for more of my thoughts. Next, we have Your Blood, My Bones by Callie Andrew. This is about a girl who inherits her father's old farmhouse where she grew up until she was about 12, and she thinks that she's just gonna burn it to the ground, but she goes inside and finds her childhood friend from there chained to the wall, imprisoned inside. And it turns out that he's immortal, and he's basically been killed every time he reaches the age of 18, and it's so crazy. So I do have a full review up of this as well. It's a very atmospheric story. The character dynamics are really good, and I really enjoyed reading this book and would highly recommend it, so check out my review for more of my thoughts. Now for the series that I probably have the most thoughts on, we have the Godspeaker series by Karen Miller, consisting of Empress, The Riven Kingdom, and Hammer of God. So this is just an absolutely insane story. So our first book here follows a girl who is enslaved at a very young age. She's I'm not sure how old she's really supposed to be, because that wasn't super clear, but probably 6-ish, I don't know. So the slave trader guy really gives her the special treatment. He gets her an education because she never had that, all of that. So she doesn't even really realize that she's a slave until she's not allowed somewhere, and then she goes, really, I'm not actually special to a slave trader guy, I thought he was my friend, and all of that. So she kills him and his right-hand man and goes off to be a warrior and ends up marrying a warlord, and since the warlord is barren and only she knows that, she has a kid with someone else, and then she has another kid with someone else, and passes them both off as the warlord's sons and all that, and the second son she hated the actual father of, and so she hates that second son. And so she adores her older son and hates her younger son, and it's just a really insane villain origin story basically, and it's super good. And then our second book is about one of the main characters from the first book going to a completely different country that's kind of more reminiscent of olden day England, your kind of typical fantasy setting, where there's this princess whose father is dying and she's the only living child that he has left. But she's a woman, so she can't be queen in her own right or anything. She has to get married, and whoever she marries becomes king. So all these people are trying to manipulate her in just this terrible, terrible way. There's this basically the guy in charge of the organized religion in this book, it imprisons her until she picks he's trying to make her pick the guy that he would control basically, and it's just absolutely nuts. So overall, I really enjoyed this series. It was super unputdownable. The only things that really ruined the story for me and really took me out of the story is that in the entire first two books, everything that happens in the story is manipulated by a higher power. So basically, in the first book, the main character just says, well, I'm doing this because the god told me to, blah, blah, blah. And it's not that she's just saying that. It's that that is true. The god really is telling her to do that stuff. He's telling her to marry the warlord and have a son with somebody else because the warlord is barren, etc., etc. So like everything that happens in this book is motivated entirely by a higher power. And then the same thing happens in the second book. Different main characters are talked to by God and told exactly what to do when. And so the entire motivation of like both of these books is like, I just kept thinking, like, can we maybe have the, you know, the characters find out about something in a different way, like in a way that's actually organic, you know, instead of it all being like the entire plot, like a god, whichever one it is manipulating the entire story. And then the third book, less of that necessarily happens, but we've already gotten that far in the story. Like the third book is very much just the culmination of everything that happens in the first two books. And so even though I really enjoyed this series, like that really bothered me the entire time. And then also since in the second book, and then continuing into the third book as well, one of the, you know, main characters is from the world of the first book. He doesn't speak the language of the country he goes into in the second book. So the way that his learning their language is portrayed in the books is not done very well. So for instance, he continues to say yes, no, and sorry in his own language, and yet there are complicated words, like numbers, big numbers like 10,000, or words like hammer or stuff that would not be used, that he knows no problem. And I'm like, he learned that language really fast to be able to know all of that. And yet he's still saying yes and no in his own language. Like, it just didn't work for me, and it really took me out of the story. And then I also kind of felt like, since the first book is so disconnected from the other two, it almost seemed, because basically we hardly ever see the main character of the first book in either of these two books. Like, she's barely in it anymore. And so it's like, it almost seems like this could have been its own series. A Canticle for Leibowitz. This was a really good book. I don't have that many thoughts on it, but basically it's about like a far future, almost post-apocalyptic-ish Utah, where people don't know what like anything is. There's basically this religious order that thinks that like a blueprint and stuff is like this whole, like a sacred thing, and like all this weird stuff. And it's just an interesting concept where like they basically come up with a whole religion that's built around really arbitrary stuff. And it is so interesting and just so weird. All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. This is about, this takes place during World War II. Basically it follows a blind French girl and a German boy who ends up going to like this, you know, Nazi youth dealio, and then ends up joining the German army, etc., etc. And it is super weird. It's really good, and I mean, I really like historical fiction that just really shows all this detail and all of that, and it's just really fascinating and really interesting. And finally, Fish by Stephen C. London, PhD. And this is something I read for my work's new book club. This is the first month that we've had a book club, so I just checked this out from the library and read it. It's super short, only 100 pages. Basically, it's about a manager lady who gets promoted to a department that's super lifeless and just everyone's depressed, and it's a huge change from the department she was in before, and she has to kind of get these people to be more motivated to you know, have fun, have a good workplace, and like really change things up so it's not so depressing, and so that people aren't so depressed and all of that. And so she finds this like fish market where people are having a lot of fun and creating a really good working environment and a really good environment for the customers. And she like takes, you know, implements what they do to her own workplace, which is just like an office. And so it is really fascinating. It kind of shows the importance of kind of bringing a different attitude. You know, obviously you have certain things you have to do at work, but you can change how you do it, make a game out of it, do something fun while you're doing it, all of that. So it is really fun. It was a really good book. I flew through it. Those are the books that I read in the first half of April. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye!